welcome back. This is Starticus Chats at Digital DNA. My name is Alistair Cameron from Starticus, and we are joined by David McCullough of VRPark. David, thank you ever so much for joining us. How are you enjoying the event so far?
Very good, excellent. We were here, we launched the business this time last year, and the footfall was probably lower because it was the first time back, social distancing. This year, very good. Really pleased with the turnout, really pleased with the interest.
Great.
Very good.
And I think let's chat about that 12-month period, because for me, you've been working in one of the industry sectors which has probably had the most change around obviously how people interact, how they work, how obviously how we learn and educate as well. So tell us a little bit more about VRPark for starters.
That's a good point. So VRPark is a virtual business platform, and it's designed to create the physical space in a virtual way. So everything that you would expect to do in business in the physical world, we can replicate in the virtual world. But interestingly, if you had asked me to describe the business last year, I would have called it a virtual reality business park. Now we're saying it's a metaverse, which is a virtual reality, because people have really picked up on metaverse as being a kind of a key word. It's resonating. Thanks to Zuckerberg, people are now talking about that. So even though we don't think of ourselves necessarily as a metaverse solution, we still think of it as a business solution. We would be remiss not to mention the metaverse, because that's what people hang their hat on.
100%. And I suppose employers' mindsets have changed. I mean, you wouldn't have had that disruption unless it was for COVID, really, obviously, with your business as well. It must have been as much as obviously the last 2 years, 3 years was tough. For personal reasons, business must have been benefiting in that sense for you, obviously, for people to understand about that process.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we don't want to feel like we've profiteered on the back of a bad time. But when we looked at the platform initially, it was as a direct response to, we were really running virtual events, and they just weren't good enough. If you're running an event for your client and you're not happy, that's a tough gig. So when we discovered the technology and we applied the technology, we realized that we could actually bring value back to businesses. So you're right, there was a seed change in people working from home. So that is now morphed into hybrid work from anywhere. So what we've got is a platform which has enabled organizations not necessarily to adopt, but to try different things, to look at what's out there. And we'll just look at people saying, can you see a video in there? And we'll say, well, yes, you can appear on the video, but that's really going back to replicating a Zoom or a Teams. And those are very good for transactional engagement, but they're not good for truly engaging with your team. And that idea about being present, so we're present today, that's a whole different feeling than when you feel like you're observing something. So our whole ethos is we want business people to feel present when they're at work.
Excellent. And in a sense, obviously, you're probably creating a time saver and something which creates a little bit more, process, in a sense that someone comes somewhere, there's a process, it's driven by the need to do something. Do you feel like obviously you're creating a new work environment in a sense that isn't offline, isn't online, it is a new way of working?
It can be both. That's exactly right. So depending on the individual, and that's the thing is, the change in technology is always driven by the individuals and what people want to do, how they want to do it. So we've given people a taste of what it's like to work from home, less commute, cost of fuel. I mean, who knew? Cost of travel, impact on pollution. Whatever your driver is, spending more time with the kids. We just bought a dog over lockdown. How are we going to go back to work and look after the dog? It's those simple human things which allows people then to design the way that they work that suits them. And I think that's the key. It isn't a one size fits all. Do this, 2 days in the office, 3 at home. It's people actually saying, it suits me to do this, to commute less, to use that time to do something else, or whatever it happens to be. So we're just really grateful that we've got a platform which can enable that.
It's a smarter way of working, obviously, to have both being in the office and working from home. And I think, obviously, government or whoever can kind of try and drive the initiative of going back into the office full time. But I don't think we're going to be going back into the office full time. And that hybrid approach in that sense, like that metaverse approach, is going to be around.
So we're seeing that, kind of here the direction of travel from government is to get people back into the office, which makes sense.
Yeah.
They want revenue streams from transport. They want the local businesses, the coffee shops, etc., to thrive, as we all do. It's not that I don't want. My irony is, we have a virtual platform. I come into the office every day.
Yeah.
Because that's my choice.
Yeah.
I've got 2 people working from home remotely, and that's not an easy environment to have 3 people working remotely from home. So in my personal circumstances, it suits me to be in the office. I like being in the office, but it allows me to stay engaged with everyone in the office. A third are at home all the time, a third in the office all the time, and the other third flip-flopping between.
Yeah.
And that's the truth of it.
It's a choice. It's a choice, isn't it? And like, what's next for you guys then? Like, where do you see this developing, or what's the next iteration of what you're doing?
So I think we're moving from the test and try stage with our clients, where they've looked at it. So we came up with use cases at the start. We had all these use cases. Use it to do this. Use it to do this. And very quickly it became clear that all we needed to do was to show the platform and wait for them to tell us what the use case was.
Yeah.
But what we've seen in terms of direction of travel, and we do need to focus obviously in certain areas in terms of focus on who your customer's going to be, we're seeing remote working and hybrid being key. So we'll focus on organizations that have that challenge. We've seen that training is a challenge, and training running parallel to this is changing: online training, virtual training. So what we've got is a platform which can allow people to be trained in a realistic way, which they're familiar with. We can replicate that digital twin of a classroom, which people are familiar with, but doing it in an engaging way rather than just simply watching a blank screen. And the third one, which is probably the biggest driver now, is after that mass resignation that they all talked about, where people have changed jobs at scale across the world. What we're getting now is the big recruit or the big reshuffle, and organizations are now trying to use technology to attract people in by saying we've got this technology, but on board, particularly large organizations. Imagine joining an organization and not meeting your colleagues. Doing that on a Zoom call isn't that good, but imagine doing it in an environment where you can actually hang around and speak to people. And we're seeing that from some of the big blue chips of this world, and it's at a global level, where they're actually buying their own metaverses, which are private metaverse rather than a lot of people talk about, which is the Facebook public-facing one. So that's probably our 3 key focus.
It's interesting just to end on this note. Like maybe 2-3 years ago, if I'd heard what you were doing, I'd have kind of been slightly baffled and amused. But now you're working at the forefront of where perhaps employers and organisations and maybe local government or education sector, they're going to have to go, because we've moved on too much to go back to all the old school ways of doing things.
Look, and I would have been in the same boat. If you had mentioned that to me, I would have thought gaming, headsets, it's really not for me. Like, I'm not a technologist, I'm a business guy. I like business, like people, like working with people, collaborating with people. We've just happened to have a tool, and there's many other tools out there, which businesses can use to grow. And business is driven by 2 things: pain and gain. They've either got a problem they're trying to solve, or they're trying to get competitive advantage. And we think we can do that, but we don't try to force how we're going to do it. We're just saying, look, this is available now. Have a go, have a play, and then see how it would apply to your business. So look, onwards and upwards. It's going to be interesting next year to see what last year was like, because it's been an interesting year.
Well, I look forward to having a follow-up on this, because I think 12 months from now we could be having a follow-up conversation and different results entirely. So look forward to speaking to you again, David, and thank you for your time, and thank you for being at the start of Zone again.